When it comes to Parthenope, it is definitely something that's a little bit artsy, definitely a little bit niche. But for the audience that can learn to get past the superficial that it initially offers, and also a very rough first quarter, you can learn to love it. So to summarize the movie, it begins with the birth of Parthenope at 1950, jumps to her being 18, and then spreads across her 20s and 30s, and then ends in 2023 when she's 73 years old. And throughout the movie, we watched as the Naples-born Parthenope, an undeniably beautiful woman, takes advantage of multiple opportunities to meet interesting people, get engrossed into their cultures, and all the while show that she has more to offer than her beauty because she has wits, intelligence. She is a study of humanity through anthropology, and overall, she just seems to want more to life than what she could easily get. So, get to the review section. As hinted in the summary, Parthenope is not trying to use her beauty as a crutch. It gains her access to things and people, and for example, it even gives her a slight bit of privilege, with the example being that her parents worked for a billionaire who literally from, I believe, Versailles, got her a chariot and then had it made into a bed for her. That's how privileged she is on top of the beauty that she gained as she got older. But with her pursuing becoming a professor in anthropology, how she values education and experience people can give her, you see it's not material things, it's not to be lust over like Aphrodite that Parthenope wants. What she wants is to take all these opportunities and options that are given to her, see what works for other people, see if it could potentially work for her, and kind of just gather data. And even though it doesn't lead to, from what we're told, like research papers and all that type of stuff, in any kind of massive scale, you do see that it's kind of, in a way, I want to almost say it's kind of like the opposite of Honora, where she's not trying to take advantage, exploit, or really just live off of the luck she has for as long as she can. But it seems Parthenope is aware that beauty's not going to last forever, especially youthful beauty. So she's trying to get everything she can out of it, every opportunity, even if it's something that puts into a comfortable position, just because she knows eventually these moments may not be offered to her anymore. Which leads to the second highlight for us, and that's the people we meet. Because there comes a certain point where it seems like Parthenope kind of takes a step back and she becomes the medium for us as we meet the various interesting entities who live in Naples. Whether it is a preacher who is trying to become the Pope, but he has a few skeletons in his closet, which may complicate that. An actress who became disfigured after having some type of plastic surgery that messed with her face. Another actress who is seemingly thinning and not balding, who's from Naples and is kind of disgusted with the place because of all it represents for her. There's some guy who I believe is a gangster, and these people all bring something interesting to Parthenope's world, including the professor who's her mentor. And after some point, they're the driving force because Parthenope, while she never becomes just a pretty thing in the room next to them or making them seem more interesting than they are, she, again, is a person who studies human nature, how cause and reaction happens, and with that, she knows sometimes it's best to just let people go on to explain themselves, to give their story in order to truly learn about them, where they come from, their culture, and again, she's a studier of life and she's been given the privilege to experience it in ways many people wouldn't. But with all that said, the first quarter of this film is boring as hell. And part of the reason it's boring as hell is because it sticks very much to the superficial part of Parthenope and what you would expect from her. She's this beautiful woman. Her brother's also very handsome and attractive, and they are just privileged to the point of being boring. And one of the first people we meet, who happens to be played by Gary Oldman, he doesn't fit into the same realm as the rest of the people who come into Parthenope's life and have some influence over her. He's this writer who I believe is a gay man. He's boring as all hell. He seemingly is unhappy with his life, and he drains you to the point that even as there's something tragic that happens at the beginning of the film, well, the first quarter anyway, it doesn't really keep you awake. And if you're somebody who sees this movie after a long day and you're already kind of tired and the movie theater has a comfortable seat, there's a good chance you may doze off. But thankfully, you'll probably wake up when the film actually gets interesting. So the next on the fence topic is that it's poetic to the point where some may call it pretentious. And the reason I say that is, at times I do appreciate the wordplay. Like, there's a back and forth between Parthenope and somebody else, and at the end they say, at the end of life, irony remains. I think it's the pastor who says that. And if you're somebody who likes those little bite-sized quotes or wordplay, or like seeing people match wits and banter, the poetic part of this movie may actually interest you. But if you find that to just be a lot of people trying to show how smart they are or how fancy they can be with their words, you'll just think that this is just a artsy looking film being artsy and showing that maybe this is not your type of thing and maybe you should just learn to not go into this realm. Because in some ways, you may think with the way everyone talks that maybe Parthenope is based off of a book, be it Shakespearean or anything like that, like classic literature, but it's not. The way that the dialogue is, sometimes it leans that way, but it doesn't actually, from what I check for IMDb, age 24 and all that, this is not based off of another entity. So that kind of adds on to how the poetic romanticism of the wordplay can feel kind of dated and weird. And granted, this came from the 1950s. Parthenope is an adult in the 1970s, so I wouldn't assume people talk like that, but at the same time, it's in Naples, Italy, so Italian and also Neapolitan, I believe, is considered romantic languages, so maybe it's just that I'm not used to it. But it seems there is a bit of a consensus when I was checking to see if it was just me that the dialogue isn't necessarily everybody's cup of tea. But perhaps the real issue that a lot of people may have, or maybe just me because I'm very much into character development, is there are huge gaps in Parthenope's life that are missing. Who she is from birth to 18 is completely omitted. And then it's kind of strange to see there'd be so much focus on her life in 1973, 1974, 1975, even her in her early 30s and 1982, but then from 1982 to 2023, nothing. You don't get to see how her life might have changed when she was no longer young, thin, and enjoying all the privileges that came from that. Instead, we just jump to her being 73, seeming on the verge of retirement, and that's what ends the movie. We don't even get to see much of her time as an older woman at all, and it feels like such a disservice to how this film wants to build up Parthenope to be more than just this beautiful woman, but one who's smart, witty, sophisticated, and can easily assimilate with different cultures, but for whatever reason, as much as you see that there's supposed to be a point in seeing her as more than beauty, they don't really take that point and really show it go out as she gets into her 40s, 50s, 60s, and eventually 73 years old. Which leads to the last on the fence topic, and that's just the people who are closest to Parthenope are the ones you take the least interest in. And this kind of piggybacks off that whole Parthenope is more of a medium sometimes than an actual active character you like invest in. And again, it starts in the beginning part, which is such a rough patch where you don't give a damn about her parents, because I don't even think we get to learn their names. And then when it comes to her brother, he may have the same ability as her to perhaps be seen as more than this privileged child, but he has his own issues, and his issues just don't generate much of a way of interest. And on top of that, you're not really pushed to feel or care about this family, especially after a tragedy that happens that pretty much leads to Parthenope distancing herself from them, and them just fading more and more as the years go on. Hence why we give this kind of a mixed, if not divisive rating, and that's because with Parthenope, there seems to be a wish to honor the romanticism of Italy, especially Naples, as well as the intrigue that comes from such a place which is able to produce so many great stories like My Brilliant Friend. But at the same time, this weird push and pull between wanting to show off Parthenope in ways that go beyond the superficial, yet at the same time they don't want you to get too close or interested in her specifically, but more so the privilege and opportunities that come with it. And add in the fact that the first quarter of the movie is going to be a real struggle for people who aren't like truly into these kind of movies, to the point where I can imagine them walking out because it's just that boring, or maybe even falling asleep. Again, in many ways, you get what they're trying to do with Parthenope, but at the same time, the struggle leads to the point where it could easily alienate those who don't want to really take the time to give this 2+ hour movie a chance.